Hey everybody, we are on 6.5. This is page 8. Page 8. Okay, so we are trying to find the solution. Finding the solution means we're trying to solve for x. This is a very easy Algebra 1 level problem. So tell me what you would do first.
Minus 3.
Very good. We're going to minus 3. So this is going to be, I'm going to rewrite this problem so it's a little more coherent. Okay, we're going to minus 3 first. Square root 2x minus 3 equals 5. What do you think we should do next? Huh? Square each side. So you're trying to find x, which means get rid of things that's farthest from x. So the next thing is the square root. We got to get rid of it. And to get rid of it, you do the opposite, which is to square it. So 2x minus 3 equals 25. What's next? This should be pretty easy. Plus 3, 2x equals 28. And then the last thing? Divide by 2, so 14. All right, the last thing we want to do is double check, because some of these answers may not work. So you want to, either mentally check it or actually plug it back in to check. So I'm going to plug it back in. 3 plus square root 2 times 14 minus 3. The question is it going to be 8? Okay. So might be a little hard to check mentally. Let's just write it in. 28 minus 3. All right, 28 minus 3 is going to be 25. Square root 25 is what? 5. Why is it not plus minus? It has a plus before. So this is the idea of principal roots. So if it has a plus sign, that means they just want the plus or the positive root. So this is only 5. So 3 plus 5 equals 8. That is correct. So x equals 14 works. Okay, let's have you do one really quickly. This next one. Okay, so this answer is 6. And when you check it, it does work. All right, now we are going to the Algebra 2 level. Okay, so when you see something like this, 3 times x plus 1 to the 2/3. So now the exponent is not a nice number. It's actually a fraction. Equals to 12. So we have to kind of do the same thing. We're trying to get rid of things that's farthest from x one at a time so we can get x out of there. So when you are looking at something like this, x is to the some kind of power that is a fraction equals to a number. What you want to do is you want to get rid of that exponent. And to get rid of that exponent, you want to just do the reciprocal. Okay, so if we raise it by the reciprocal, what is the reciprocal of m over n? Yeah, n over m. So we just raise it by the reciprocal power on both sides, because if there's an equal sign, whatever you do to one side, you've got to do it to the other side. When you do that, it cross cancels, and that's going to be a 1. So then you solved it with just x equals something. Okay, so kind of keep that idea in mind. Okay, so when we are trying to raise it to the reciprocal power, it's going to be n over m. All right, so let's go ahead and try to solve this. 3 times x plus 1 to the 2/3 equals 12. All right, with your math sense, what should you do first? Divide by 3. Yes, do whatever is the farthest away from x. So x plus 1 to the 2/3 is equal to 4. What's next? We got to get rid of that 2/3, right? Not times by the reciprocal. We want to raise it by the reciprocal, because if you just multiply by 3 over 2, it's not actually going to get rid of anything. You want to raise by the same power but reciprocal. Raise it by 3 over 2. Okay, so then those 2/3 times 3/2, that's going to cancel, so it's x plus 1 equals 4 to the 3/2. 4 to the 3/2. Okay, all right, so these questions are going to be very easy to solve if you can try to figure out those special numbers. So 4 is actually what to what power? 2 squared. Yes, 2 squared. So it's 2 squared to the 3/2. 2 squares to the 3/2. So that's going to cancel, and we get 2 to the third, which is 8. However, that is not entirely correct. This is a little tricky. We are raising it to 3 halves. 3 halves. Let's, since I wasn't there to teach you over the break, I just want to make sure that you can change this back and forth between exponent form and radical form. 4 to the 3 halves. How do you change it to a radical form? Square root of 4 to the third. Square root of 4 to the third. What's 4 to the third? 64. So square root of 64 is 8. However, you applied that radical, right? You put the 3 halves on. So therefore, there's actually plus minus. So this is the tricky thing. Anytime you raise by an exponent where the denominator is even, you're going to have plus minus. Okay, because essentially you're square rooting. When you are square rooting, you have plus minus. If the problem had square root to begin with, there's no plus minus. Are you guys with me? Please be careful on this one. So this is actually plus minus 8. If you don't do plus minus 8, you might miss a answer. So x plus 1 is equal to plus minus 8. Okay, so that means x plus 1 is equal to 8, or x plus 1 is equal to minus 8. So what does x equal to?
9 and negative 7.
What?
7 and negative 9.
7 and negative 9. 7 and negative 9. Now we really do need to check, because one of them may not work.
Okay.
What's the question?
Oh, wait, well, we're just checking it.
Okay, so we're going to check. So we're going to check x equals 7, and then we're going to check x equals minus 9. Okay, so check x equals 7 3 times. 7 plus 1 to the 2/3, is it equal to 12? Okay, let's see. 3 times 8 to the 2/3. Okay, 8 to the 2/3 is a little bit tricky. Let's change 8. 8 is what to what power? 2 cubed. Okay, so 3 times 2 cubed to the 2/3. That's going to cancel. 3 times 2 squared. Is that 12?
Yes.
Yes. So x equals 7 works. All right, here is your task. You are going to check if x equals negative 9 works. All right, negative 9. Let's check negative 9. 3 times negative 9 plus 1 to the 2/3. Okay, so that is 3 times negative 8 to the 2/3. What's another way to say negative 8? Negative 2 cubed. Make sure you put that in parentheses, though. If you don't, it's going to be very different. That cancels, so it's 3 times negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared is 4, positive 4. So this is going to give me 12, which means this also works. So if you forgot that you were actually square rooting, you would have missed one answer. So then that would be a bad idea. So make sure you be careful on that. Okay, practice. Do you guys think you can do this on your own?
No.
Okay, all right, let's help you do this.
Yeah, we'll try.
You can try?
Let's try.
All right.
No. Just do it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, what should we do next? First.
-1.
Minus 1. What's next?
Divide by 3.
Good. What's next? Well, we can turn that radical into a fraction form. It would be a lot easier to look at. How do you change this? X plus 1 to the what?
Third.
3/5. So then what's the reciprocal power?
5/3.
5/3. All right, so go from there and find the answer, check it, make sure it works. Okay, the answer is 31, and if you check it, it does work. Any questions before we move on?
Yeah.
You have question? You have question? Okay, all right. Okay, so what we want to do is raise by the reciprocal power, which is 5/3. Okay, so that means x plus 1 is equal to 8 to the 5/3. Now, what we want to do is make this a little bit easier for us to calculate, so we want to change that 8. 8 is what to what power? 2 to the third. So 2 to the third to the 5/3. That's canceled, so it's just 2 to the 5th. What is 2 to the 5th? 32. So then x plus 1 is 32, so x is equal to 31. And then you just want to go back and check it. Okay.
Wait, how do you know whether to do the plus minus or not?
You look at the root. So the denominator here is a 3, which means it would have been a cube root. That's an odd root, so there's no plus minus.
Okay. The even of the reciprocal.
What?
Yeah, even of the reciprocal. All right, now we are going to the harder versions of these questions. So it gets pretty complicated. So far what we have seen is just one x. This time we're going to have two x's. One is inside the radical, one is outside the radical. So this is going to be a little tricky. Kind of the hint, if you see one radical sign, you are eventually going to isolate it and then square it. The hardest one is when you see two radical signs. When you see two radical signs, you need to move one to the other side so that there's one on each side before squaring. So it's going to make more sense once we start solving them. Okay, so this is the case. So, we started from like the easiest kinds. Now we're going to get to really complicated ones where square roots are everywhere. All right, let's look at this question. This is a little tricky. What should you do? Plus 5. You always want to get the radical by itself. You don't want to square it as is. If you square it right now and you are squaring each term by itself, that would be incorrect. You will have to FOIL. If you FOIL, you're going to keep having that square root inside. So this is not a good idea to square as is. You're going to isolate it. Isolate it means leave it by itself. Okay, now what? Not square rooted.
I mean, square it.
Square it. X plus 7 equals what?
X squared plus 25.
Yes. You have to FOIL it. You cannot just square each one. Now what? Think about chapter 4. Make it equal to 0. Yes. Anytime you see anything in this form, make it equal to 0, and we're going to maybe use quadratic formula to solve. 0 equals x squared plus 9x plus 18. Thank you. Can we factor?
Yes.
Yes. X plus 6, x plus 3 equals 0. So x is equal to what? -6, -3. All right. Now you have to go back and check. I think one of them will not work. So go ahead and plug it back in. You can either mentally plug it back in or you can physically plug it back in. Remember the idea of principal root. So when you plug it back in, remember this one is only looking for the positive root, not the plus minus version. Okay? Let me know when you have the answer. All right, so once you check, you'll realize that -6 doesn't work, so x equals 3. All right, moving on to the hardest one there is. Yes, it is fun. All right. What should we do? plus square root x. Okay. 1 plus square root x. What's next? What should we do? Square it. It's not actually going to help us solve it yet. Remember I said if you have one square root, you're going to square once. If you have two square roots, you're going to have to square twice. So we're not there yet. All right, we're going to square it. On the left, we get a 2x plus 1. What do we get on the right?
1. X squared.
X plus 1? No, you would have listened to Satan. We have to FOIL. Can you FOIL in your head? Okay, so here, you got to memorize this. If you don't, it makes life a lot harder, or at least life in math class. So first of all, it is not a squared plus b squared. It is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. You got to memorize it. If you don't, it just makes things a lot slower. Okay, so 1 plus square root x squared. Can you do that in your head? The first term gets squared. So it's what?
1.
The last term gets squared. So it's x. The middle two terms multiply together and then you double. 2 square root x. Like that. Remember the formula is 2ab. All right, now what? Huh? Subtract 1 on both sides. 2x equals 2 root x plus x. What next? Subtract x. X equals 2 root x. Huh? No. So move this x to this side. So subtract x. So, okay, what's next? Square it. X squared equals what? This is a very commonly missed part.
4x.
We don't have to FOIL. FOIL only applies to binomials.
4x.
4x. A lot of people will get 2x because they will forget to square that too. So please be careful. It's 4x. And then now what?
Square root.
Huh? We just squared it. We don't want to square root it. Ooh, that's a bad thing to do in math. We don't divide by variables. We keep it. That's great. But now how do we solve? Anytime you have something we're trying to solve, we always make the equation.
0.
Yes, make it equal to 0.
Oh, then it becomes half of it.
Now what? Half of a FOIL. Okay, so what do you do next?
X squared less 1.
We had to solve, right? So,
See what's supposed to do to get it.
you can use quadrant formula, but it's like using an axe to e stick. Huh? X minus 2x? Yes, take out a GCF. And then what?
X minus 4.
X equals 0, x equals 4. Okay, make each factor equal to 0. All right, last thing is what? Check. So this one's pretty easy to just do in your head, and they both work. Okay, let's have you practice one, and we are pretty much out of time. All right, so do this one, and then let me know when you are done. The answer is 10.